Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the stream this Sunday. It's a bit cloudy outside, unfortunately, but it is a good day to be doing Angular, regardless of what I want to be a developer says. Thanks for the little bit of comedy before the stream, man. Um, it was it was pretty funny. Um, HTML is or is not a programming language. Um, I'll just it has ML in it that stands for markup language. It's a markup language, right? Um, I think I'm gonna restart. Let's restart. You guys may have seen me struggling a little bit with the linter before the stream um, in WebStorm. Let's see if I managed to fix it up. Um, Hopefully I did. If not, well, I break things all the time. Oh, I don't have my test open. I mean, one thing we can do is we could just go like right here and change this to a let. Okay, so we did fix it up. We're good to go. If there isn't linting hijinks, oh man, I wish that didn't hurt so much. But yeah, unfortunately, that is quite often the case. So our grid resource feature, we removed the other one, right? And so now it's with grid resource. Go ahead and take this piece out. And that's going to push us into grid resource, which we can grab. And let's see what happens there. I do have to give you guys a heads up. Yesterday, my father-in-law was working on a horse walker, and the grinder he was working on fell apart, and he wound up in the emergency room. I'm not sure if we're gonna go out. We're gonna go out to my in-laws' house or to the hospital or what today. So I may have to end with very little notice, just so that we can go be with family. So he's okay. It the grinder he was wearing proper protection and stuff, but the grinder went through the face shield and hit the eye. And luckily, the CAT scans and X-rays show that his eye is okay. He's just he got it was just a freak accident. So he is okay. They didn't wind up having to do surgery on his eye and all the other stuff that they were worried about, but still wanting to spend some time with family today. So, just ask a little bit of understanding if we have to end early, but we will be ending on time today. Anyway, changing to the right resource seems to have fixed that up. Let's see if our unit tests catch any of the bugs we saw last week, right? So let's see if we can run this with the watch now. Now that we've actually changed something, it should pick up some changes. But I'm hoping that this change grabs whatever tests we've got wrong and allows us to see, hey, this is why your grid isn't working. We may be digging in deeper than that. So we do have some failed tests. Ooh. And look at this. These tests so So set cell value has problems. And this is exactly what we were seeing last week. Um, our set cell value wasn't updating the values in the array. So yeah, we are getting our set cell value is giving us nothing. So let's take a look at expect receive to equal this. So line 108 of our grid store tests. So take a look at line 108 and let's see. So here, so this test is misnamed. Let's fix up. This should be with grid resource now. The last cell updated should emit the last value of the cell, but set grid values. And this is set cell value. We're grabbing the set cell value, the last value in the cell state. We're setting region 1, column 1, row 1. So region 1, column 1, row 1. Okay. I was like, no, it's already a 3. This is the expected values, but we're getting nothing out of it. So the question is, why is that the case? Take a look at what we're getting. We're just getting an empty array back. So let's figure out why we're getting that empty array. And that should help us figure out what's going on here. We're calling set cell value. Our set cell value is coming from the service. The service that we're setting up is we're creating a, we've created a signal store. We've added the grid resource. And then our service uses that test store that we put together. We're using the create service factory. So the question becomes, why is set cell value so here's set cell value. So value is cell value. Interesting. I wonder, so console.log, we're going to set cell value. And here we're going to, you know, instead of console.log, we'll do console.table. And here we will use value, we'll use new value. Let's do value to use. So let's take a look at these two values and see what we're getting out of our test. Um, oh, we may not be. Let's just console log this also set cell value. Um, we'll do value to use and new value. Let's just see what I'm thinking might be going on here is if this value is cell value is not properly handling the code. Um, you're not properly handling the value, not the code, right? Um, so this grid feature date. Wait, didn't we just rename this? With grid resource feature. Do I have a with grid resource? But these are all sending back the wrong. Break out of this and let's run it again and see if we get the proper error messages. And this, man, this there's definitely something going on here. The grid we're getting back is set with all undefined, which is a good hint that there's something going on with our resource. With grid feature. So where is this coming from? Line 106. Yeah. So that message is so weird. Is this with grid feature? Do I even have with grid feature in this file? With grid feature. No. It's fascinating. Um is this cached output? No. Let's try just running this without the watch command and see what we get. Man, these guys like come out of the woodworks. Oh. Okay. So now if we go back, do we get our console logs? And this is so weird. Like, why? So grid store grid-resource.feature.ng.spec.ts. Source lib grid store grid resource feature. Grid.store.spec.ts. Do I really still have a grid.store.spec.ts? Right here. The grid store has a whole bunch of stuff commented out that we probably need to fix. Um, but that one's fine. I don't understand. So that one passed. That one passed. Oh, there's my table stuff. So we are getting the values that we expect. So here's the failure. So we are getting these values. So it's not the value issues that I thought we were getting. I'm just, this is so weird. The with grid feature, like, this should be different, but I'll worry about that later. Hey, Marcus. It was a mall. I think you kind of went over that, didn't you? Um, so even the last cell updated isn't updating the right values. Um, so I need to not focus on the piece that was frustrating me, and instead let's get focused back on. Um, so here we know we're getting the right values here. So then it comes down to the state.update cell value. So our update cell value is here. So let's console.table. And now we're going to look at our previous value. And value row column. Sure, that works. Right? Because this brings in value row column. We could even do is read only, but I don't know that that matters, right? We'll get a table of all of that. And we'll see what we get in our output. That just rerun everything. Let's go see if we can find that table again. Yeah, it doesn't look like it reran this one. Oh, there we go. Now we got a whole bunch more. And we're getting some other errors. So here with this feature, the previous value was undefined. The current value is that. So undefined. Undefined. See, it's expecting this to be all ones and then 112 and 113. Then this one and this one, we're not getting the emit. So the one that seems to be working right now is a grid resource feature. So expected 3, we received 3 with an error in it. So we expect 1 undefined, which we get, then 111, then 112, then 113, which we're not getting. So we know that the previous value, well, if we take a look here, our previous value is always undefined. Which is interesting. So we're going to leave this in place, but let's take a look at the commands, right? So let's take a look at our grid commands. And this is where our resource comes into play. Your cat says hi. That's awesome. It was good to see your cat on stream when you were streaming with Rainer. I I'm always appreciative of people's like pets and stuff. I have a dog and she just loves to sit at my feet and help during the day, and um, that's awesome. So the set grid values command, what we probably need to do is get some testing around this resource. So that we can figure out what's going on. But the command type we're getting is we're doing the what if we just console table our grid here. Let's just see what we get on our grid table when these rerun. It should be kicking that off. Dogs really do be feet sitting. Yeah. She bit me 20 minutes. I'll bet she did. I was busy with thinking about my life. Oh, man, don't do that. It's just a thinking about life takes you to weird places, man. Okay. So this one seems to be working, right? Oh, interesting. Is our resource just not working? Is that the problem we've got? Is that our problem? Well, we can test that by console.log the grid resource command and see what command we're getting. So this first one works. These ones don't, but we're not getting into here. And the reason for that, it's also console table. And here we just want our current command. So I'm curious if we've got signal problems, right? Because um, interesting. Because for example, if we take a look at this code here, the grid feature, the piece that's testing that we emit the right value. This code goes through um, this code right here with the grid commands to set an update grid cell command. Right, so on grid commands, we're updating this. Um, and our grid commands is just a signal of grid commands. Um, And then here we create our grid resource. We pass in this map of grid commands. Grid commands map. So we don't have a current grid. And then if we don't have a current grid, we create a grid. I wonder if this is the problem. Wonder if we change this into an RX, how to get the schematics to properly add the new dot. I've never figured that out, Michael. I haven't played with it too much, but yeah. I think I found the answer to all my problems to be a Chad, actually a Giga Chad. Dude, if you figure out how to be a Chad or a Giga Chad, you need to write a book and teach people how to do that. Then everybody will be Chads and Giga Chads, and then the world will just be a better place, right? Um, I'm wondering if the issue that we're running into has to do with signals and the way signals are handled. Um, and I wonder if we instead change this to be an RX resource. X resource here. Um, yeah. And now our loader is now an observable. And I'm wondering if our grid commands now be an observable. So if we take a look at these props, right? Oops. And instead we make this an observable of grid commands. Um, now our request comes in as an observable, but now our loader is we can't destructure the see observable of grid commands has no call signatures. Um, Instead, what we would do is we would pipe on And I've been thinking about doing this anyway, um, because we've got an issue. Um, so command dot pipe, right? And then inside of here, we would bring in tap. Um, Come on, bring in tap. There we go. And tap would allow us to do that. And I think we need to add a couple extra. Need that. And I think we need one more here. Okay. Yeah. Let's clear this out. Um, let's, so there's that, right? And now do I have, there's my RX resource, there's my pipe, there's my tap. Boom. That matches there. I need one more there. And the loader, there's that. There's the function on loader. There's that one. There's that one, that one, that one, and those all match up. So I should be able to, there. I should be able to paste this in. And here, this is the current command now. Right? So if we comment that out, now our current command is of type grid command. So this is deprecated. That's fine. We can take all of this. I believe. We have an issue here. This needs to be moved to here. No, it needs to be to here. Right? Man, what a mess we have right now. Okay. So here's our loader. Our loader ends here. And default value is our grid. We're just going to return our grid, and that works, right? Yeah, we want to map this. We don't want to tap. We want to map. We want to map this over. So let's bring in our map. And that should work. And if we, oh no. So this now becomes our current command, which is of type grid commands. And then luckily we've been doing source control. So we can grab this code right here. And there we go. And paste this code. And instead of promise.resolving, we return of grid. Default grid doesn't work because observable. Okay, so here we just return of grid here also. That solves that problem. And then down at the bottom, we've got one on here. I don't know what the error is at the bottom of my file. These are good. That's good. Expecting another closing brace. Did I mess something up here? So that matches there. That matches there. Is that matches RX resource. Oh, I'm missing one. There we go. Missing one more curly brace. So that solves that function. And now we've converted it over to an RX resource. We're using RxJS, and this has been something this has been something that I've been thinking about for a while. Using the signals as commands, the reason I did that was just because I was using a regular resource that uses signals, right? That didn't make a lot of sense to me in the case of what we're doing, where the commands could come in, like they were basically an RxJS stream, right? Because they could come over time, and we wouldn't necessarily know the value immediately based on that command. We also didn't want commands, um, like if multiple commands were issued, we wouldn't want those commands to be grouped together. Um, I think this is what we want. I think this breaks a couple of things though. So if we take a look at the end, um, our build is broken. Probably the best way to see this is to terminate this, and we'll just run our build. Um, and our build should show us that we've got some issues. Um, Giga Chad book written. You ever figure out how to step one right React, step two right Java, step three right React and Java? Giga Chad. Uh, when you say write that, you mean you create them, because I think they already exist. Type number can't be, yeah. So I think we've got an issue here with our commands. Um, and yeah, so our grid commands map needs to be of type observable. But we've got a signal now, so what we can just do is we can just say, hey, this is now a subject grid commands. And we bring in our subject. It's there. Oh, this needs to be a new subject. So now we've got our new subject. We don't need the no grid commands anymore because we aren't using it, but this breaks a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So if we look here, our grid so our grid resource um, is no longer a signal. So we need to go from an observable back to a signal. And we can do that in our computed, right? Um, we can just call our to signal. Um, turn this into a signal. And here, got a couple of issues here. Oh, so our to signal on our computed could return undefined. Where's my computer? Here it is. So we can see here, toSignal takes an observable cell state or subscribable, and it returns a signal cell state that's either a cell state or undefined. But we can add toSignal here. We can add some options. Let's go take a look at the options. I believe there's an option that we can add that just says, hey, this can never be undefined. So if we look at toSignal, there's that one. Here, options, no infer. So it's this last one, toSignal, source observable, and require sync. So that's the option that we're looking for. So we can throw this require sync in here. Require sync true. Oops. Require sync. And that's going to, with require sync true, now our computed toSignal. Yeah. So now it's just a signal, right? There's some issues here. So like, oh, toSignal, yeah. If the interop was so good, then why isn't toSignal called 3Signal? Exactly, right? Um, I'm just here because I don't want to be unemployed. toSignal is marked, and there is a PR for doing so with toObservable not tagged yet. Yeah. And yeah, these will be stable soon, but here's the problem: is our computed signal cell state boom boom. What's going on here? Like here, and this may be just an issue with let's go build it instead, right? Let's see if we build it. There are some issues that we need to fix, like the fact that we're using an observable and we're trying to do a set on an observable that doesn't work. So we'll need to fix that up. But the concern I have more is, yeah, these sets I totally expect. The set. No, it is definitely saying yeah, we're getting the implicit any, so that is an issue that we've got. Um, take a look at this grid resource, let's take a state dot grid resource dot. So dot value is a writable signal. See, in dot value, dot value comes out as an observable. But if we make that an observable, we break a whole bunch of stuff. Um, we can convert it to a signal with our to signal, right? Here. And by calling to signal here, we fixed some stuff, but now we're getting a cell state or undefined. However, if we add an initial value, that's going to tell us that the initial value doesn't work, right? And we could do a create grid state. I believe. Happened. No, we don't want create grid state. We want create empty grid. Create empty grid. Here in the resource. No, it is create grid state. So now our initial value observable cell state. This is a cell state, right? Oh, I've got my initial value in the wrong place. Right? Let's go back a bit. So here we go. So my to signal is here. Now, if in my to signal, just add an initial value of like if we do an empty one here, now my computed comes out as this, right? Comes out as a signal, and that's okay. But we still break here. What's the type of state.grid? Oh, wait. I needed to read that error better. So we can still require sync here. Because the error is telling us that any, because type number can't be used to index signal cell state. We don't need the computed on it. That's the problem. I think that fixes up our grid issue. Yeah. Because now our grid. Yep. There we go. So the computed is no longer needed, which means that this is no longer computed. This is actually a prop. We can move our prop here. When you read your error messages, it tends to help. Oh, I can't do that because it exists here. But we can do so this can be with props also. Right? Because it doesn't make sense to call with computed on this because it's not really computed. It's just a property that turns the value into a signal. Yeah, you were getting it. Link man Vlad. Yeah. Would using that one lifecycle hook or helper that does sync stuff be a better alternative? The lifecycle that does sync stuff. You're talking about the stuff from the NGRX extensions, right, Michael? And that might be something that we should take a look at. NGRX extension. NGRX toolkit. I think that's the one. The NGRX toolkit here. Synchronize the store with web storage. Watch state. Let's go take a look at that. That's Angular. That's also Angular. GRX. Docs. Go to state and we go look at NGRX signals. And we're saying under state tracking. State tracking enables the implementation of custom signal store features such as logging, state, undo. Oh, wait, this is something I haven't paid attention to. Watch state. Um, I don't know that watch state is going to solve our problem here, but I think it's a good thing for us to explore in the near future. When I need observable in my signal store, I create a state property, and then in with props, I convert that to observable. So I don't create subject in prop and then again convert to observable. But I guess in your case, I guess you need just property and initial state. Yeah, and that's it. Exactly. Exactly. And this is so we're still experimenting a bit here. This is still me learning, right? So um, there's definitely some stuff here that we probably need to clean up. And I appreciate the feedback here. Because I agree. Like converting to signals and back from signals. And this was even something that was called out as an anti-pattern, right? If you need to convert something to an observable and then back to a signal, well, that's not necessarily there. We're in an interesting state here because we're trying to do something with a resource that people really haven't done yet, right? And so we started with just a regular resource using signals, but I want to rule out that the issues that we're having aren't related to the way signals update in change detection cycles, right? And one way we can do that is to swap to RxJS. Um, risk any drops in synchronicity. Your approach is a lot cleaner, IMO, but I tend to not like too observable due to effect under the hood. Yeah, and you guys are making good call outs here. We we should definitely take a look at this, right? Right now, what I want to do is rule out that it's the resource causing the problems, right? Um, it could be like signal update stuff and things like that that could be causing our um, issues. Um, with watch state, like we need a prop, and I'm um, so get state and effect, right? Because we aren't really using an effect. Um, watch state. See, watch state is a good one to get the effect of RxJS, right? But the issue that we've got, Michael, I think, and Vlad, um, I think the signal inside of the resource is the problem, and so we needed to convert that resource to be RxJS, so that we get discrete nexts, right? I was hoping to take advantage of like the syncing and everything, but that doesn't help here. So I'm curious if we run our tests now, do our tests work, right? Um, let's run this one. I need to be cognizant of time, but I think the issue we've got is that our resource isn't updating, and we need to figure out why that resource isn't updating. So I don't like resource at all. That's fine. We're experimenting here, but the problem we've got is that we don't have an HTTP backing on our grid. So the resource we're creating is actual resource to the grid itself. And we've still got the problem with our undefines. So this change may not have been the cause. We've got a whole bunch of issues with pencil marks. So we've got a whole bunch of other tests that have problems. But our grid problems, were not tied to that issue. One thing, so we can revert this, right? And this is an important part of just understanding or of having source control, right? Is like this experiment we can do away with. We know the other way works because we used it in our Star Wars stuff. Let's go ahead and revert our stuff here. So we'll go ahead and discard these changes. I'm probably going to kick myself for this here in a second, but and we'll discard these changes. And so now we're just back to where we were before. Let's stage this. And this is us fixing lint issues in WebStorm, right? And this is swapping to use the grid resource, swap test to use grid resource. Or we'll do with grid resource, right? We've got that. So the issue we have here, and let's go into our test here, and this is the test that seems to be doing the best. So we're just going to comment out the rest of our tests, right? So this one we can comment out, and this one we can comment out. We're not comment out, but we're gonna skip for right now, right? Oh. And instead of that, it says we should use it.skip. So we'll do that. So we're doing what you do in a production environment. When your tests don't work, you just skip them. That way you can commit it, and if you can get it past somebody's PR, then the problem's no longer yours. Don't do that. That's horrible advice. Never listen to a streamer. We just give horrible advice. Oh. All right. So hopefully we can um so we have manual QA, so don't worry. Exactly. Exactly. It's the QA, it's the QEs. It's their problem. They didn't catch it. It's not our fault. They didn't catch it. Um Wait, what? No, 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 no. Why is this passing? Why are you passing? So if I do undefined here, oh no. um what did I do? Like this shouldn't be passing. And like my change here, like if I change this to be original value, um we shouldn't pass. We've got bigger problems here. Um why is that passing? So it should emit when a cell is updated. Um is that expect just not running because it's not emitting anything? Is that my problem? Um like expect observer spy dot get values length, and we should expect the values length to equal 4, right? um console dot table observer spy dot give values. I don't believe that this is happening. um oh, dang it. uh Oh, I should be looking at. Oh, how's the newsletter going? I don't have a newsletter. It's the newsletter for Jan Niklas. and he's doing amazing with it. Yeah, yeah. You, I saw it right as I was looking at chat. I was like, oh, somebody in chat caught me. Um, this this one's always going to pass. This one should not pass. Thank you for calling that out, Vlad. And I'm sure I was driving you mad because I'm like, oh, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? Like I said, never take advice from a streamer, right? Um, so this is the one we expect, right? That's broken. Um, and in fact, I think we can fix this test up here. This test isn't a good test. Create cell state that. Let's give it a value. And we'll give it a value of 4. And let's call that value the old value. We can do 2. That's fine. I don't care. But we're going to give it a value of old value. And then here we're going to expect this to equal 1 old value, right? We're going to see that this one's broken also. By checking for undefined, we can also say if it had a value. We should add back the test that we had before. So we'll go ahead and it should emit. Here we can just say undefined. When cell value is updated if it didn't have a value, right? Let's change our quotes here. Oh, come on. Are you kidding? So here, your double quotes, and here, your double quotes didn't value. So we want both of these to pass because if we fix it, it's possible that so we can take out the old value here and here the old value no longer exists, so this now becomes undefined, right? So we've got 2 tests, and this is like when you're writing your tests, you're going to discover that some of your tests weren't as good as you thought them be, right? What's the point of trying to make these tests pass if you want to rewrite that subject in your store? The point of it's not that I'm trying to make the test pass. The point here is that the tests work, and they worked before we converted to the resource, right? So we know these tests will catch issues, and they are catching issues. So it's not trying to make the tests work. The point here is that our tests are catching issues. We need to track down what is the issue that our test is catching so that we can fix those so that we know that our resources work, right? And this is the benefit of having good tests and good test coverage is that we know that our tests will work. And so when our tests work, we know that we've fixed our issue, right? So we've got 2 failing tests now, which I expected, right? So this one should have been 112, but we're getting 11 undefined. The question is, why are we getting 11 undefined? So this is our set cell value that we're calling. Um, and down here with our grid resource, when we take a look at that one, um, so our 112 is not working, but this one we also aren't getting what we expected. Um, we're getting a whole bunch of undefined. So like the size is proper. What's crazy here is this should be undefined, right? Um, I'm not getting this table though. And maybe it's because let's console log this. And this is our get values, right? So we expect this to log out a bunch of values. Um, and go take a look. They might be up much higher in the. So this one works, these two don't. Here's our with grid resource, should emit when cell is updated if it had a value. Um, so the thing, when we look at this one, right, if it had a value, and let's do our skip here. We'll bring it back. So we want to skip that one, but let's take a look at this one, right? So we create this cell state. And then we subscribe to the last cell updated on our service. Um, oh, you know what? This isn't going to work. Um, so we need to, this doesn't work here. Um, we actually need, and that's the point of the other test. But we can, yeah. So this test isn't working, and it's this test that really should be working. Um, so here we are, we're trying to emit this value. And our observer spy is spying on this. What I do want to do is let's just spectator dot service dot last cell updated. And no, we're not gonna call next on here. What we want is we want to pipe this, and we're going to we're gonna take 4, right? Because this is going to break if it doesn't work. So we're taking 4 values, and then we're just going to tap this, and we're going to console log and subscribe here. And that should give us, actually, you know what? Let's go a little bit better than that. We're going to take value, and we're going to console log um, value updated, right? And so we're going to see if last cell updated is really emitting. I believe it is. Um, but we're going to um, yeah, so here we go. We can see right here, right? 1 1 undefined, 1 1 undefined, 1 1 undefined. So we're definitely getting that. Um, so we need to figure out why we're getting undefined here. Um, and so the next place to look, if I make this like a 2, does this fail? Let's make it like a something bigger, like an 8. Does my test fail, or is it failing here so it's not getting to the rest of the test? Um, let's take a look. Yeah, so it's not even getting down to this one. So this is where I needed to move my console log. Um, here, and that would have shown my values in the output. Um, like it's async, yeah. There's a bit of async weirdness going on here, Linkman. Hey, Ole. I hope to try to write vtest with vtest would be cool. So here we go. So yeah, so I don't need um, need I don't need this anymore, right? Because observer spy will take care of that for me. And in fact, I can even well, I'm not going to, but I could extract this into a variable because I'm using it in multiple places. Um, and get last value is not what we wanted here. This should be get um, values length, right? Um, so we know that there is definitely something, like we know it's firing because last cell updated is firing, but we're getting this like weird state where the last cell value is wrong. Um, and the reason the last cell value is wrong is if we go take a look at set cell value inside of here. Um, so set cell value calls this with value to use, and then it calls update cell value. Update cell value grabs the previous value from the grid. And then we call state commands dots grid commands dot set. So this grid commands dot set is calling an update grid command. So our grid resource here should be responding to that. Um, so our grid command map is coming in on the request. Um, so here we should see console.log grid resource command, right? We should be able to see a command at this point. And we should see that in our output. Um, so here's our observer spike like calling. We're not getting here. Um, one thing we could do is we could just console.log here, and we could just do like one divide. Oh, that's not gonna throw. We could. Oh, let's just throw right here, right? We just throw new error, and we'll just throw that, right? Um, and let's go back and see if we get that error when it hits this command. Yeah, no, I don't think there really is something similar. Ole, um, I need to comment this out or it won't compile. Right. So there we go. Now it should compile. Oh, but now the return type doesn't match. Ah. Um, right. We could throw here, right? Um, doesn't like that. I'm trying to be sneaky here, but okay, that should compile. No, because TypeScript is smart enough to know that this return type on my resource is now. Oh, that's right. Let's go actually read our error messages then, right? Oh, We're not even getting into the loader on our resource. So we've got our grid commands. It is a signal. It starts with a no grid command. So it might even be as low level as the way we're creating our grid resource. Is that not working? Console.log. Let's just see what we get here. Okay. So we are creating the grid resource twice. Oh yeah, we expect that because one of them is passing. Let's skip the passing test for right now. Um, and the other thing we can do is down here. With watch, there's a way to set what we watch. I think I can hit H to no. The F? No. My watch flag isn't behaving the way I would expect it to. I wonder if NX is passing some flags to it. Anyway, we've only got one create resource here. And function getter. So grid commands map comes in. Is this my problem here? Is this is coming in as a getter? Is that potentially my problem here? I thought we did this in the past, but so we only use grid resource in one place. Oh no, but we access it in other places, right? Like, yeah, grid commands. But we could, instead of doing this, we could do const grid resource. equals signal, or no, grid commands equals this. I'm just curious if I take this off of the state and we just make it here. That should break. Yeah, like there's a lot of state underscore grid commands. But we can fix this. If we grab all of these, and we just delete the state from it, that should fix all of that. We're gonna have some unused state because we're using that, but I'm curious if this changes anything. Add with feature. Yeah, with feature looks amazing. It's still calling it the getter function. I guess that's just the way the signal works. We can take this piece out here. Let's also just see what grid commands map has in it, right? If we just call it, it should be nothing. So when we look at this, we should get type none. Yep. So that's what we expect. So it is the right type. So we are creating it. So the next thing to take a look at is just down here. We can take a look and we can just say, hey, we can say effect, right? We want an effect. And we can just say, hey, yeah, well, you know what? Let's not even add that if statement here or here. Let's just take a look at what it thinks we're getting for grid commands as we're going through. Let's see if those grid commands are actually changing. Yeah, Signal Store made a huge advantage for me. Yeah. Signal Store is probably one of the biggest and best changes that's happened with state management in Angular in a long time. So we get that one. So we get this value output, but we don't get the, so that's interesting. Our grid commands map. So our effect should definitely be watching the commands map here. So this is where we're going to go watch state, right? So in our grid resource feature here, we are going to add at the bottom, we got our with methods. We want with hooks, right? And we'll grab state for this. Let's bring in our with hooks. And we want our on init hook, right? And we want to watch state. And here we're going to watch state. And if we take a look at how watch state works, right, we get the state and we can take a look at how our state is changing. So let's do the same, right? We're gonna watch state here, and we're just gonna say s, and we're gonna console.log state change s, right? And that should give us some idea about how our state is changing. We should be able to see the commands getting set. It's not watching that property. But not the props are combined. Yeah, you're a step ahead of me. So watch state isn't what we want. Here, we want an effect. And our effect is going to say that our command changed, right? Command changed. And we can just go state dot grid command. Right, so we've now got an effect. We won't get the same thing as watch state directly in the state, and only if you need it be observable, you create with props and observable to that. Yeah. And it is directly in the state. That the thing we're trying to do is we're trying to use a resource to create the to handle our grid, right? Like this was all working before we swapped over to the resource. We just wanted to experiment with using a resource for our grid. But I see what you're saying. what you're saying is here, instead of doing a prop of grid commands, um, we move grid commands up here. We make this no grid command, right? And then we take these props out. And then we can come back down here, and we can watch our state again, right? We can go back to our watch state. And here, we can console.log, new state, boom. What is going on here? Right. So there we go. Now we've got our state there, but we need to change our grid resource state. And actually, we can just do here for right now. We can just add grid commands, and that will be of type. No, let's not do that. Let's go to our grid resource. Let's not mess around, right? So let's take a look at our grid state here. And we can just add it on our grid commands. And it's a grid command. So there we go. And here, initial state, this can just be grid commands. No grid command. What was the type of this before? It was of type grid commands. Grid commands. That one. That it had a. So now we're good here. Oh, now we have to update the state. Oh, okay. So now instead of doing a set, we patch the state here. Patch state. And here we just do underscore grid commands. And we just do this command here. That's going to patch the state there. And here we just patch the state. Yep. And here we're also going to patch the state. Name here. And we'll take out all these comments that I'm adding right now. Once we can track the state changes, right? There's our updated region. So catch that state. We'll probably add some sort of updater for us that allows us to pass in a command. But let's see, with that in place, do we get the console logs that we would expect? You need to change the original. Yeah. Yep. So here, now we're getting new state. Has error selected, grid commands type none. Grid commands type none. Grid commands type none. Interesting. Oh, these are all passing. These are all tests from here. So here we've got our update cell command. So it definitely starts out with grid commands none. And then we get our update cell and we get another update cell, right? So here we're updating the cell to value 1. Here we're updating the cell to value 2. And here we're updating the cell to value 3. Let me do value 3 again. So this should be undefined, then 1, then 2, then 3. So we can see that we are getting the commands. So the issue is in the resource itself. We aren't getting into the loader. Is it really down to that? I really hope that's not the case. Let's just try running this again. I don't think it's the case. I don't think where the signal is read. Well, in the case that I just made, I don't think that loader is going to work because now we're not using a signal. In the request, it should be signal read like signal. That's from the docs. User resource equals request. Loader request. Oh, should it be signal read? Interesting. Request that ID, user ID. Yeah. Yeah. We can definitely check that, right? I don't think you're wrong. So if we take a look at here, if we take a look at resource, right? resource options. No, that's not where we want to be. Dev guide signals. Thank you. And here's the crazy thing is that we've done this before. Um, yeah. So it definitely is reading the signal here, right? And if one thing we can do is we can go take a look here. We take a look at our resource workshop. And we go into the source and our services. Okay, why did you do that? Oh, this is probably got the wrong stuff checked out. It doesn't have the most recent version checked out. Um, so instead of going here, we can go to we go take a look at our resource workshop here. And instead of the main branch, let's look at the last step, right? And in the source, so here's the resource that we were using. And then the current team is that. Yeah. So it is the however, we had the signal on the resource. And then we had this stuff. We're trying to pass that in. So we were using a service that wrapped a resource that it created. We're trying to create this resource. We can see here. But it shouldn't matter at this point. That's the problem. But we definitely did add the parentheses to read the signal. But this one is definitely failing, and we're not getting into, like, we can see here that our command has changed, right? It's an update cell command. But we're not getting we're getting the new state. We're not getting the commands logging. So we start out with no command, right? And then we move to an update cell command, and then an update cell command, update cell command, update cell command. We're not getting those changes at the code level. And this is where that's where we're failing. Like here, we should be getting this command. Um, and our grid is just private to the resource itself because the resource is just providing the grid. Do you read the same in the loader? Yeah, yeah. If we go back to this code, right? And I can put this in the chat for you, so it's easier, to follow along with. Um, so here, if you look, it's request team request, right? And then request team request. So we're destructuring the team request from here out of the request that comes in. We're doing the same here, right? And one thing we could do is take out this destructuring and just see what the request comes in as. So instead, we could just go request. And here we could log the request here. And here, this just becomes request.command. Right, so the type of request, request dot command. Wait, how does request not have command? It does. Oh, it's request.request.command. Right. Which is why we were destructuring it. It should be callable. Let's see what that does for us. There's our none command. But here's our commands, right? Here's our none command. And then this is our update cell command, and our update cell command, and our update cell command, and our update cell command. We're getting 4 emits, and we should get 4 emits because of the way that the code's written, right? Because our update cell, where is it? Update cell value. This one right here. The problem we've got is that this grid commands is not firing off the resource. And if we do an effect here, right, and we just console.log that, right? So we're going to take a look at any time that changes in our effect. I'm wondering if the reference we've got isn't working. If that makes sense. It may not make sense. Um, but this is the one that passes. Here's the one that fails. So we're definitely logging the state changing. I think I need to change the way this works. And that's why we used a service before. This should work. Like this grid commands map. I do return stuff. Oh, the throw error is a problem right now. Right, we're throwing an error in. Oh. Have I been shooting myself in the foot here for a while? Because it's trapping those errors for me. Right? Eight passed, two passed. I'm really, really good at shooting myself in the foot, but no, we're still not. So like we get this new command. So this is going to return a promise with a grid in it. Um, just curious here. Does this ever change? Right? Equals that. And then we'll console.log grid change. And then we'll log our grid and then we'll return our grid here. Let's see if this if our grid ever changes. There's a switch state, but no any returns. Am I wrong? So we assign the grid here because we're overriding the grid here. So we break out of the switch statement here and we return the resolved promise here. Does that answer your question? So we are reassigning the grid using these update values, like these update formulas here. Um, but we're returning it here. But the problem seems to be that we're never logging this. Um, okay, so we've got an empty grid here. Um, you can see here. This is an empty grid. So grid changed, empty grid. Oh, let's um so here we can get the grid values, right? Because we're using that in our test stuff here, right? We're using this get grid values. Let's do the same here just to make it easier to see what we've got. Get grid values, right? And we'll import this. Oh, that only exists here. Where is get grid values? We're gonna just bring this over a second. This is all gonna go away once we track down what's going on. So now it's not gonna be such a big. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now is log the result of that. So we can see here, we've got a whole bunch of commands that we're running. Creating puzzle mode. So we get the initial grid, but like this is not causing that grid change to change. So we're never getting a new grid. Which tells me our resource isn't loading, right? We can actually, we'll leave this. Nah, we'll take this out. It's just a mess right now in our code. But one thing we could do down here is we've got our watch state, but we could also watch what? Well, no, effects here. Um, So here we do const is loading is that, and we could also do const is error or has error, right? Grid resource dot has value. status, right? And we can grab our status here. And then we can just say, hey, console.log grid status, or grid resource status. We can look at our status here, right? Status and is loading. Let's see if this ever changes over the course of our code. Resource.error will grab the error. Is it the correct place for returning a promise? Yeah, it is. I mean, using the switch statement it's probably, I mean, this would just be a bunch of if statements. We could look at this as like a bunch of if statements. But the crazy thing is we're never getting this new request to fire, which tells me that the resource might be wrong, right? Let's go up here to this one that has the problem. Let's take a look. So we've got our new state. So these commands are never causing that effect to fire. We can see that, right? Like, we would expect this effect is loading should change and status should change. Well, that's not necessarily true. Those could go so fast. Like, I don't think we're ever even getting into update cell. And I think that's our problem, right? Like if we throw a new error here, it's going to complain about unreachable code, and we might have to fix that in our. Yeah, no, the compile still worked, right? But here we shouldn't be getting something down here. We should be getting the throw. I'm curious if this is like timing issues with jest. So let's just break out of this and let's just pnpm exec nx serve, right? And like we've got so much logging code in here that if we take a look at this, when it's running, we should be able to see stuff in the console. So it all built, it's all served. Let's go to our application here. And we refresh this and we hit F12 to bring up our console. So we did get an unknown grid resource effect, grid resource command. So we are getting changes here. So if I change this to a 1, um, so with my 1, we're getting the new state. Let's clear this. And let's put it like a 3 here, right? So if I hit 3, um, wow, we're getting a lot. So creating puzzle mode, false. What was the new command here? So it was updating a region. So here's us pressing 3. The new state that came in was an update cell. We take a look at that. The props are column 1, row 0, value 3. So we are getting the command. Well, that's the new state. But we're getting a whole bunch of new state also here. Update cell value 3. No, we don't care about the whole state here. Let's hone in on what we actually care about, right? So here, let's take out this throw. And in our feature, we're gonna watch new state, but we really only care about new state.grid command. Right? That's all we really care about. Is that running an injection call? I'm not sure what you mean there, but we can definitely take a look at that too, right? So let's clear all of this. So when I focus here, we get a new state with a type of none. When I press 3, we get a whole bunch of stuff. Wow, do we get a whole bunch of stuff. So we get the value 3 there. Like this is firing off a ton of update cells. Is this still the same? No, it's updating every cell. Pencil marks. The values coming in as undefined. Um, so the unit testing, there's something going on there. Um, the unit tests aren't working, but we've got some issues, right? Because here, if we do, wait, why is that an update region? Oh, this isn't really an update region. Um, when I focus here, yeah, there's some stuff that's happening, but me changing this to a 3 is firing off every cell being updated because it's doing pencil marks, right? So we get a whole bunch of new state, but nowhere in here are we getting, well, we are getting the grid resource effect. Where's the grid resource effect coming from? That's in the grid resource. I'm beginning to think that we've got some issues here. Oh wow, I'm way over. I need to go talk to my wife. But the biggest issues we've got here is that, so we've had all of these state changes, right? They're compressed down into one update region, right? Um, and then this grid resource command, which is coming in here on grid resource line 89, right? So one of the big issues we've got um, is this resource here is it's only getting one command, right? So all of these other commands are being rolled up into this one command. Um, and the request that's coming in is just an update region. And the props are this, right? And so what we're putting in, it, it's because of the way signals work. And this is the way signals should work. And this is probably why the RX resource was the right way to go. So I'm curious if we go back to the RX resource that I just destroyed. Um, We need to experiment some more. I'm not ready to give up on this yet, but I'm beginning to question like my initial assumptions, right? Um, what this probably should be is the grid should be a piece of grid state or of signal state. Right? The grid should be a piece of signal state that we can then give back and work with like it is a signal state. The resource should provide the signal state. It shouldn't provide just a grid. Because there's more to it than that, and that's where the problem is. And I think that's where Vlad is coming at this from also. Um, we went at this pretty naive when we did this initial change. we assumed that we could just give a grid back. It can't just be a grid. It's going to have to be some signal state that we give back. The resource is going to have to provide state to our signal store that can then use that state also and react to that state. Um, because we can see we've got all sorts of issues going on here, right? Like, look at how many state changes happen, and those state changes get collapsed down into one update region call, right? Which is the very, very last command that's here. We're skipping all of these other update cells that update pencil marks, that update values, that update a whole bunch of stuff. Um, and so if we're going to make the grid a resource, we need to move all of the state of that grid into the resource. And at that point, our resource really wraps the old signal store, kind of. Um, hey, it's good to have you back. I want to be a developer. I did miss you terribly. There were like whole sections. Like, if you go watch the stream back, there's just whole sections of time where all I'm doing is worrying about why you're not saying anything. So, um, I thank you for the peace of mind of coming back. It's a big help. Um, anyway, wrapping a resource. Can we wrap this grid as a resource within a signal store? That's that's the piece I want to figure out, right? Because if the resource has to wrap the entire store, then that's less like Angular already does. Like, we can already get that kind of functionality through dependency injection and things like that. But if we can wrap a specific resource and provide that to our store, um, the other way we could do this is we could turn the grid into a service. Um, and maybe we go about it that way. But I do need to end. I think we need to solve a couple of issues um, where the resource actually fits in, right? We can't. Is the project making money yet? Um, man, streaming, like, for those of you guys out there who think getting into streaming is going to make you money, um, I imagine if you're like a streamer on the level of Prime, you're probably making money, or like Thor, or some of the really big programming streamers. They're probably making money. When you're a streamer in a very niche area like Angular, most months I'm happy to make enough money to pay for my streaming software. Um, so I'm not making money. Getting into YouTube and editing my videos just as a way to better advertise myself. If you're doing it to advertise yourself, then the investment you're going to make in that is worth it, right? Because you're advertising yourself. Um, if you're doing it to be an influencer and make money, it's going to be a long uphill battle. There's um, things have changed from way back when, and the amount of money you're going to make is going to be disappointing. Uh, but yeah, making full stack product, I think, like, part of the reason streaming is useful is that it gives you a community that you're responsible to, and you're coming up with ideas and things, right? And so it keeps you constantly learning. And there are often fails. Like today it was a failure, and I can see why it's a failure. But it like this kind of stuff gives me good insight to what's going on. Just the sheer number of updates that are being swallowed, that are never making it to our resource, right? Um, but we actually wouldn't want all of these updates making it to our resource, and this is where well, we would, but we wouldn't want all of these turning into updates to. I think an RX resource is a good place to start. I definitely need to end though. Thank you guys for being here. And hey, I want to be a developer. If you want to reach out and ask questions about stuff like software and things, um, I can give some ideas. And like editing YouTube videos, man, there's a reason I stopped doing it. I would spend 6 hours a week streaming, and I would spend close to like 30 hours a week editing videos. And there's no way I could afford to pay an editor. I don't make anywhere near enough money to pay somebody. And I'm not one of those people who is going to be like, hey, if you do this for me, you're going to get a lot of. I'm not going to pay people an exposure. That's just stupid. Um, so, um, yeah, YouTube editing. Um, uh, Discord is probably the best place to do it. Well, no, do it through Reddit. Um, Reddit will be a good place. And then we can talk about where maybe I don't get on Discord that often. I should probably get on Discord more. Um, but reach out on Reddit, and then we can talk about where we want to talk. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. I'm gonna go hang out with my family. Um, a bit of a learning stream today. I was hoping to succeed, um, but there was a lot here that we learned about. Well, that I learned about signals. Right, a lot of you probably knew what was going on, but just the sheer number of updates that we're compressing down into this one update region. That's the whole reason why we've got problems. Like we can't do all of these updates and then expect our software to work. So we'll circle back and figure out. I want to make sure we can provide this grid as a resource. So because that's gonna lead into a bunch of other things that I want to do. And if we can't do that, we can always just revert back to where we were before we started this, um, which is fine. Um, but I would love to get this resource working. So you guys have a great rest of your weekend. We will see you next time.